Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Wasn't that a really interesting presentation by the Revenue Department? The most important thing that I learned was I have to go tell my bees not to waste their time making honey. That does not help me out, so I'll have to keep that in mind. I am not a farmer or a farm owner in Wake County, but I am elsewhere in the state. So in other counties, I will be out here in the audience and I will be doing present use and, all the stuff that many of you are doing, but I don't do that in Wake County. Registered deeds also has nothing to do with the revaluation. We feed facts to the Revenue Department, but we don't revalue, we don't set the tax rates or any of that. So there's a difference between the register of deeds, which is a separately elected job, and then the rest of the county. So I'll get into this at the very end of my talk, but if you want to talk about present use, that's the Revenue Department. What button do I push to make it go?
The right arrow. Right arrow.
The right arrow? All right. So the root cause of the property values increasing in Wake County is that we're experiencing growth. Now, our rate of growth is positive, but it's declining. And what we see up here on this chart is organic growth. That's births minus deaths. We also have non-organic growth, which is people moving here and people leaving here. So you have to add them both together, and that's also supposed to be positive. But I don't have that data, and I don't estimate it. But that's the root cause. If our population wasn't growing, our land values would not be going up. Sometimes for growth, geographic, political boundaries matter. So for example, the fact that the Wake County school system is not growing has to do with the boundaries of Wake County. But when it comes to land, it really doesn't matter whether you're just south of the border in Harnett County or just north of the border in Wake County. The growth that's happening in Wake County from an economic standpoint and a land standpoint, some of the Wake County growth is actually happening in Franklin County and Harnett County. So that's important to bear in mind. This shows the median sales price over the last several years for a parcel of land in Wake County. It's gone up from $223,000 to $303,000. 303 is for full year 2019. In the fourth quarter of 2019, it was 310. So you can see that that is increasing at a 6.3% compound annual growth rate. And it would probably indicate that land in the very southern part of Franklin County, for example, is experiencing something similar to that because it's influenced by Wake County. This chart shows the components of the value of land being transferred in Wake County. If you look over in 2014, just under $10 billion worth of property sold in 2014. In 2019, just over $15 billion was sold. The blue bar is the total value of property that was sold at $1 million or less per parcel. The orange or red is 1 million to 30 million, and the gray is north of 30 million. 97% of the individual parcels sold are in the blue area, 2.9% are in orange, and 0.1% are in gray. Now, what you guys probably have is land that's in the orange, and God bless you if you have it in the gray. I'm happy for you. This is called keeping the farm, but realistically, some of you are going to be selling land to developers. And when that happens, what will happen is you'll do a sale that will be in the orange or maybe the gray. The developer will then cut your land up into small little pieces and sell that out multiple times, and all those transactions will end up in the blue. And as to whether you want to sell out or keep farming or keeping forestry, that's your own decision that you have to make depending on your own circumstances. Now, we have a lawyer coming in here later. At the time I was thinking about what to say, I did not know that a lawyer was going to be coming in to talk about things, so I'm not his front man. This is just a coincidence. I happen to be a lawyer in addition to Register of Deeds. And I know that, just for a normal person, we don't like lawyers all that much necessarily. And we don't like to have to pay lawyers, we don't like to have to pay anybody, we don't like to have to pay the taxman. But when it comes to land ownership, the amount of money that you might have to pay a lawyer for good advice might be a very small number in relationship to the mistake you could make if you tried to do it yourself and you didn't get advice. So that's my main theme today. Lawyers sometimes are worth it, and I think in the case of land and you people, that's a time when it's much more likely that the lawyers are going to be worth it. Now, at the Register of Deeds, we keep the official records on ownership of land. Ownership of land or interest in land can transfer for reasons other than recording a deed with the Register of Deeds. So, for example, your father could die, your mother's already deceased, let's say, you're the only child, there's no will, you inherit the property by intestate succession. You inherit 100% because you're the only child, and you don't have a grandparent around, you don't have a mother around. That's all that's required to transfer ownership of the land to. You don't have to record a deed from the estate to you. However, 15 years later, when you go to sell the land, how does the buyer know that you were the only son? I think that the best approach is if an interest in land, leasehold, ownership, easement, anything, occurs, it's best to paper that transaction at the Register of Deeds. So in the case of the example that I just gave you, the lawyer should, the best practice is, not all lawyers will do it or will advise you to do it, the best practice is to draw a deed signed by the executor of the estate, transferring the property from the estate to the sole heir. So you get that on record. You also have to bear in mind that let's say there are two children, and now you each own 50-50. If something happens to your sibling, that causes a problem for your ownership. So let's say your sibling is married and then has a divorce. That divorce proceeding impacts you because you're in 50-50 with somebody whose 50% is now going to change. So you have to be careful about that. Here are some other things about property that could be problems that you would want to seek a lawyer's advice for. especially if you have more than one partner involved in the property. They might make an arrangement and it ends up being binding on you. So how do you protect yourself against something like that happening? Verbal deals can be binding. So a verbal lease of your property can end up being binding on both you and your co-owners. On the other hand, because of some complicated rules, sometimes verbal deals end up not being binding. They have to be in writing, or sometimes even have to be recorded in the register of deeds. So you might make a deal that you think is binding, but it turns out it's not binding, and the other person doesn't have to live up to it. Well, if you consult with an attorney about what the rules are, you won't be surprised to find that that's the case. And then on the other hand, you might accidentally make a verbal deal and you end up being bound by it and you didn't think that you were, or maybe you made a verbal deal and you thought the deal was X and the other person thought the deal was Y. One of the things that you can discuss with an attorney, we've already hit on, is papering all transactions with the register of deeds that cause some change in the property. Something to bear in mind is that standing timber and minerals still in the ground are basically the same thing as land. So you have things called mineral deeds and timber deeds. And there's a difference between a tree that's in the ground and a tree that's been cut down. One is a chattel and one is real estate. So you want to make sure if you're taking a security interest, for example, or if you're selling something, that you paper it the right way and you do your documentation correctly. In some cases, it's an instrument recorded in the Register of Deeds. In other cases, it's a UCC filing, what you call it, a UCC 1 under Article 9 of the Uniform Commercial Code. So talk to your lawyer about how you handle minerals and timber, and don't lose sight of the factor that minerals in the ground and timber uncut is the same thing as, basically the same thing as dirt. Please do not give or accept a so-called homemade deed. This is the bane of my existence. It's not against the law for somebody to draw up their own deed. But the chances that you're going to make a mistake is going to be higher than the chances that a lawyer is going to make a mistake. Now let me give you some data on this. 6.5% of the deeds that come into the Register of Deeds office we reject for reporting because there's some problem with it that we catch. For deeds that are recorded, no, I take that back. Let's style it this way. For property transfers in Wake County, 3.5% of the time, the lawyer makes a mistake that requires him to go back and record additional documents. Now, if a lawyer makes a mistake 3.5% of the time, wouldn't you think that if you do a closing yourself, it's probably more than 3.5% chance that you're going to make some mistake? And it's probably going to be less likely that you're going to catch it after the fact. Now, don't get too excited about 3.5%. Most of these errors are very small technical things. And if they had not been caught and corrected, it would not have impacted the ultimate ownership of the property. It's just buttoning things up. The number of times that the lawyers or any person makes a serious mistake is a small subset of the 3.5%. But please don't give somebody money if you haven't had your lawyer make sure that the deed is correct. One of the things that you want to talk to a lawyer about is whether there should be a legal entity rather than individuals owning property, and probably the lawyer that you're going to have on the agenda. I assume that we'll be talking about that there are advantages to that and disadvantages. Another thing that you can possibly do is you can separate the ownership of land from the operation of land. So for example, in the olden days, it used to be that Marriott owned the hotel and operated it. Well, that's not the way they do it these days. Now, one company owns the hotel, and they're in the business of owning property, and then another company is in the business of running the hotel. Two completely different businesses, running the hotel and owning the hotel. Obtain title insurance. If you put down real money for something, you want to get title insurance, because the title insurance company guarantees that you will have good title, even if the lawyer in his title search makes a mistake. Don't rely on being able to sue the lawyer for malpractice. To win a malpractice suit against the lawyer for messing up his title search, you have to prove he was negligent. He might not have been negligent. He might have used due care, but he just made a mistake anyway. Well, in that case, the title insurance policy covers you. It's possible as a seller to obtain title insurance. Now, why would that be important? Normally in a deed, you're going to give a warranty deed, either a general warranty deed or a special warranty deed. And basically what this means is you are saying, as the seller, you're saying to the buyer, I promise I have good title. If I don't have good title and there's some problem, I will make it good. If somebody sues you, I will come in and pay the lawyer to defend the title. Well, all this could end up being expensive if you unknowingly were to sell your property and there's a cloud on the property. Even if you end up winning and the cloud is removed in your favor, the legal fees could be very large. A title insurance policy for you as a seller could end up paying the costs of defending that suit and winning, or defending that suit and losing. It's somewhat complicated, more complicated for a seller's insurance policy than a buyer, but that's something you can discuss with a lawyer. So, might be good to pay a little bit up front to avoid the prospects of losing a lot in the future. If you want to check what's going on with your property, there are two places to look. One is at the Register of Deeds website, and the other is at the Revenue Department website. The Register of Deeds records are the official legal records. The information in the Revenue Department is unofficial. However, in a normal situation, you may find that going to the Revenue Department and looking at their website and all of their information is good enough. Now, before you actually buy or sell, you're going to go to Register of Deeds. Title search has to be done at Register of Deeds. It's not done at Revenue. But the Revenue Department has a very nice website. This is our homepage where you can do a search at Register of Deeds, and this is the Revenue Department. We feed documents to the Revenue Department every day, and we feed maps to them. And they have lots of links going off to places, links to maps. For example, we have a really good GIS department in the county. They take the Register of Deeds maps and they fit them to an aerial photo, so you can see the property lines against that aerial photo. It's probably more useful for you to look at one of our maps laid over a photo than to just look at the official map. But remember that GIS map is not the official legal. When you get down to brass tacks and you're going to do a transaction, your lawyer and the surveyor has to go to the Register of Deeds and look at the official map. But 99% of the time it could be that looking at the unofficial view is better, and the Revenue Department website is really a great website. If you compare it to other counties have good websites too. Some of them are rudimentary, but the Wake County is really the best. So that's all I have.